Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad to be here with all of you tonight. We're going to have yet another great late night conversation. So let's do it. Here we go.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, 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 everyone. I am so glad to be here with all of you tonight. We're going to do the same thing that we always do on these streams, which is that I give my opening remarks, whatever it is I want to talk about. And then from there, I answer your questions for the rest of the night. There's a roll call in the middle. That's how we do it with the roll call. In the middle of the roll call, I call out everyone who's watching, names and locations. Then we answer people's questions. Right now, the way that you can send questions is to send it as a Rumble rant if you're watching on the Rumble, or you can send it as a super chat, but that has to be sent to my Cash App, right? Because it's not taking super chats on YouTube at the moment. So send questions via Rumble rants on Rumble or to Caleb Maupin 22 on Cash App. That's the way we take questions here. There you go. There you go. That's the way that questions can be sent for the second half of our show. And I'm glad to be here with all of you tonight. It is really enjoyable to be able to check in with all of you, to be able to just have these conversations. A couple announcements. The big announcement is obviously that it looks like July 12th will be the big day. It'll be near Chicago at 401 West Lake Street, North Lake, Illinois, the Midwest Conference Center. It'll be the biggest event we've ever done. We're very excited. A lot is in the works to make July a success. We have the 7-day program. We have the convention, and a lot of different things in the works. So if you're involved, if you're a member of CPI, you certainly know all that we need to do between now and then to make it a success. If you are not a member of CPI, you should become a member of the Center for Political Innovation. We can plug you into making sure that we have an anti-imperialist mega rally that will change the conversation in this country and really get things going. In order to make sure that we do that, you can come and join us. And if there's one event that you come to this year, make it this one. And a lot is happening right now. A lot of good things are happening right now, and a lot of people are coming, and the 7-day program is blowing up, and a lot is happening. So I'm feeling good about it. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And every day I'm making a checklist, and a lot is happening and a lot still needs to be done. But July 12th is the day. So be there on July 12th. It's going to be absolutely awesome. Hope to see you there. So as I said before, the way we do it on these streams, first the opening remarks. Then from there, I answer your questions for the remainder of the night. There's a roll call in between. So first opening remarks, then the roll call, then I answer your question. So you got a question you'd like me to answer, you can send it as a Rumble rant on the Rumble. If you're watching on Rumble, or you can Cash App me, Caleb Maupin 22. Both of those things will get you a question that will be answered in the second half of our program. That is the way that we do it. So glad that you're all here, and let's jump right into it. A lot's happening in the world right now, a lot of things that are very confusing, and a lot that we really don't know what the outcome will be. We know about negotiations in different parts of the world. We know about all kinds of things. I will say Donald Trump is not in a good spot right now. And his approval ratings are not doing well. And, Donald Trump, if I know Donald Trump, I do know that he's very concerned about getting the approval and getting liked by people. I will say I was very happy to see that the bill that was in the works that would have outlawed boycotting Israel was shot down, and it was MAGA Republicans who shot it down. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, and the rank and file of MAGA said, no, you should be able to boycott whoever you want. That was particularly amazing to see that Marjorie Taylor Greene is more MAGA than Trump, it seems, and that many within the MAGA base are really tired of globalism, tired of the wars, tired of all of this, and that there is a process in the works, as I've been saying on these streams for quite some time. There are bigger forces at work, much bigger forces at work. But we are in a very unique spot. And the spot that we are in is the spot of those who understand what's happening and have the ability to nudge it. There's going to be an explosion. There's a giant boulder. It's going to be rolling down the mountain very soon. And what we have the ability to do is nudge the direction that the boulder goes and guide it to the right spot. We're not going to create the explosion that's coming. It's coming with us or without us. But if we position ourselves correctly, we have the ability to swing it in the right direction. And we continue to operate on that basis. The understanding that we are laying the foundations for what is coming, for the inevitable, and that we are giving expression to the inevitable and to forces that are bigger than ourselves. And it's with that knowledge that we can act as we need to act and get done what we need to get done and not be distracted by silliness and have the tunnel vision and the focus to get done what needs to get done and build what needs to be built and provide for those who need to be provided for. And we will get into all of that later in the stream. And I will have obviously plenty more to say about what we're doing and why we're doing it, the way we're doing it, etc. But before I get into that, I thought, since it's a little bit of a rainy day in New York City where I live, I'm here in my lovely Brooklyn apartment, and it's a bit of a rainy day in New York City, and I had the time for a bit of nostalgia. And I thought of some moments that I would like to share with you, some reminiscences of times past and activism that I've engaged in that I would like to tell you about, not to glorify myself, not to make you think I'm so special, because I'm not. I'm just a guy doing what I think is right, doing what I've been called by God to do. But that said, there are things that you learn over time, and there are experiences that you have that help you formulate and calculate what it is that you would like to do and help you understand the world around you. So I wanted to start out with let me just put it this way. Of all the protests I've ever organized in my life, and I've organized many protests. When I was in college, we had a protest against the FBI when they came to my college campus. The FBI had a recruiting workshop, and we protested outside. We got a couple old boomer hippie leftists came with their Leonard Peltier signs. We had leaflets about the FBI funding neo-Nazis and COINTELPRO. We protested the FBI. On my college campus, we even organized to try and get the college to change the policy around the food prices. And I was involved in Occupy Wall Street, and I was involved in different demonstrations and protests. And CPI, we've done our fair amount of protests on the street. We protested Tsai Ing-wen, the president or so-called president of Taiwan, when she came to visit the United States. I protested at the White House. We've done stuff at the United Nations, and I've done my fair share of protesting in my life. And one thing that I've learned is that when it comes to protests, especially in the age of social media, you very much want to do them in a theatrical or well-staged way. It's not so much about making the message what it is. And, in a different time, the aim was to get mainstream television or the mainstream press to take note of you. In our time, it's a little bit different because with social media, you can publicize your own protests and you can do different things. And probably the first time I ever did anything along those lines, and I will say to this day, this has got to be the protest that I organized that had the biggest impact, which is saying something. But at the time, no one was doing anything like this. And we did it in a certain way that it packed a pretty big punch. And this was in 2012, the year that Barack Hussein Obama was running for re-election. That was also the year that a movie called Red Dawn came out, was released in the U.S. movie theaters. And it was a fictional movie about North Korea invading the United States. It was pretty wild. So I guess originally in the 1980s, they made a movie called Red Dawn with Patrick Swayze. And it was about Nicaragua and the Soviet Union invading the United States. I've tried to watch this movie. It is hokey and stupid. At one point, and it's about some high school boys forming a militia to fight the Soviet and Nicaraguan invaders. It's very, very stupid. At one point in the movie, the father gets arrested and he's like holding the fence, the barbed wire fence, and he says, "Avenge me! Avenge me!" And it's like the hokiest, stupidest thing I've ever seen. The 1980s movie was bad enough. Apparently, it was the favorite movie of Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber, and apparently a lot of the right-wing militia crowd liked the movie because they liked the fantasy of being in the woods with guns or something like that. And as much as I do think that some of the right-wing survival stuff was based on real alienation with globalism and imperialism and capitalism and all of that, I don't find anything inspiring out of the 1980s movie Red Dawn. It is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. That said, they decided they would remake it in the in 2012. They decided to reproduce the movie Red Dawn. And originally, they were going to make Red Dawn about China invading the United States. That was what it was going to be about. They figured, hey, the Soviet Union's gone, so they made a movie about China invading the United States. But then they realized they had a little bit of a problem, which was China is the largest audience for movies. There is no other country in the world where so many people go to the movie theater to watch movies as China. This is true. This blows my mind. So they realized that if they made a movie about China invading the United States, people wouldn't go see it in China because the government in China was not going to release a film that portrayed the Chinese government and military as barbaric invaders. And I knew people in Detroit who were in the city of Detroit, and they were walking down the street and they started seeing people in People's Liberation Army uniforms. Like, what's going on here? Well, they're filming Red Dawn. They were filming the movie Red Dawn in Detroit, and they were hiring local Detroit folks to be extras. And it was wild. So they decided, after they had already filmed the goddamn movie, they'd already filmed the movie about China invading the United States. They realized that it was a little bit of a problem to make a movie about China invading the United States because they could not sell the film in China. So they used digital editing to change all of the character writing in Chinese in the movie to Korean. And they made the film, instead of about China invading the United States, they made the movie about North Korea invading the United States. And Red Dawn, the remake, was about North Korea invading the United States. Now, folks, I don't know if, I'm not going to put down North Korea at all. I mean, they've certainly endured a huge amount of hardship and all of that. But if you looked at a map, how big is North Korea? How big is America? And the idea that North Korea could invade and occupy the United States without the support of China, without the support of anybody else. I mean, North Korea is fighting to survive. They've proliferated nuclear weapons. I mean, the notion of North Korea invading and occupying the United States is such an absurd. I don't even know what to say. I mean, but it was good scare porn, right? The North Koreans are evil. And actually the trailer for the film, I kid you not, began with, in a future time, when military spending was cut. That's how it began, right? So I guess the premise of the film was, if we stupidly cut funding the military budget, I guess North Korea is going to take us over. I have not seen the Red Dawn remake, but I did protest it when it came out. And so me and a handful of people, about 15 people, we went to Times Square in New York City to protest the opening day of the movie Red Dawn. And we put out a press release. We assembled 15 people, and we protested against the movie Red Dawn. I'll show you. I've got video evidence.
The South Korean people have not accepted the occupation of their country lightly. In 1968, students all over the country overthrew their government. It was known as the April Revolution. South Korea has went through a series of right-wing military dictatorships controlled by U.S. imperialism, and the people there are resisting it. Even to this day, they're resisting it. South Korea is holding an election. They will elect a new president of their country soon. One of the people that is running in this election for the Grand National Party, which is the right-wing party in South Korea, which is allied with U.S. imperialism, is this daughter of the dictator, Park Chung-hee. They want to sell out their people. South Korea is an occupied nation that's under the control of U.S. imperialism, and the people there are resisting. Even in the South Korean military, over a third of the people, the majority of the people in the South Korean military that they forced to join by conscription, they see their number one enemy as U.S. imperialism. That's because U.S. imperialism killed 3 million people in that country. We have to side with these people. We have to side with the Korean Trade Federation Union. We have to side with the South Korean workers who are resisting imperialist domination of their country. Even there we have to side with them. And the Workers' Party of Korea is on the forefront of a battle against U.S. imperialism and its decadent, sick, stupid culture. This movie is crap, just like the first Red Dawn, that Americans would even have to fantasize that this country is coming to invade them when they kill 3 million people there. It's nonsense. It's complete nonsense. We have to side with the Korean people, both in the north and the south, who are resisting our government, and we have to do that by doing everything we can to put a thorn in our government's side. That's why I support Occupy Wall Street, and that's why I support anti-imperialist forces in the United States, no matter what side of any issue else they're on.
We need is jobs, millions of jobs, tens of millions of jobs, not a hate movie. We need jobs, not hate. in the first Nuremberg trial of Nazi war criminals. Julius Streicher was one of those that was sentenced to be executed. He didn't pull any gold teeth, he didn't run any gas chambers, but he made it all possible by spreading hate through the Third Reich. This is a hate movie against the Korean people who have suffered so much. At least 1/4 of those incinerated in Hiroshima and Nagasaki were Korean slave laborers. The same U.S. Air Force that refused to drop any bombs on the railroad lines leading to Auschwitz bombed those Korean slave laborers, burned them alive, and later they killed at least 3 million Korean people during the Korean War. To this day, the center of Seoul, there's a square mile military base in the middle of Seoul, occupied by the U.S. Army. It's as if a foreign army occupied Central Park. That shows you what a colony South Korea is. We need jobs, not hate. Don't go to this hate movie. It's racist, vile propaganda against the Korean people. Don't go to this movie. It's war propaganda. Read the truth. Just like they demonized colonial people all over the world. They demonized a great African leader, Gaddafi, and they tortured and they killed him. But they needed the demonization first before they occupied an oil-rich country that was doing so much for Africa. They're doing the same thing today. The People's Korea. Don't believe their lies. We need jobs, not hate. Don't go to this hate movie. Thank you.
Thank you. You have to remember, first and foremost, that Korea, the northern half, is independent. But it is not truly free because every day it suffers under sanctions. It suffers under an embargo that's held up by the U.S. And this is a policy the U.S. uses all the time. It does it against Korea. It does it against Cuba. It has done it repeatedly. We have just seen right now what has happened in Gaza, which is also suffering from a similar blockade, where Gaza is not allowed to develop peacefully or in any way because U.S. and its imperialist allies have a plan for it, a plan for takeover. And we should be aware that this movie is the same kind of propaganda that's going on against Gaza. It's the same propaganda that's been going on against Cuba for 50 years. This is a lot of bullshit. None of these countries have an intention of attacking the U.S. In fact, the U.S. has had only one ever such invasion from a foreign power, and that happened in 1492. We need to remember that. When we're talking about this country being invaded, it happened in 1492, and the native people suffered genocide as Europeans came over and colonized. So we have to remember who the real enemy is.
It is no mistake that this film is being featured here on Times Square, which is the epitome of superficial capitalism. This film over here on Times Square is a propaganda film to create these illusions of who the enemies are. To hide the truth that the United States is the problem here, that the United States here is the imperialist nation fighting all these other nations. We're creating this notion that the United States is the victim here, similar to Zionism, similar to the policies of Israel. And just a few days ago, we had the New York City for Gaza rally over here in Times Square. And just a few days ago, we were protesting against the international agenda that these two most powerful nations in the world have, against all these different poor colonized nations. It is time we say no to this. And as we occupy Wall Street, it is time that we occupy territory, from Palestine to Cuba to South Korea to Japan. And it's time we left North Korea alone. North Korea is just one of 3 nations that are truly independent of U.S. imperialism, and we must continue to support them.
Any of it? Well, yeah.
So you didn't break?
No, I didn't like it at all. I just walked. It was like I saw the 350 show, and it was just full of violence and them like bragging about it and laughing. I was just disgusted. You know, I was just absolutely appalled, you know, by the whole thing. And the people behind me, they were giggling and laughing. And I turned to them and I said, "What's so funny?" "Oh, shut the F up," they told me. So I just walked out. I mean, I was just disgusted, and I just walked out. So, you know, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, but apparently that's what they want to do, is promote war. Like, we don't have other things to spend our money on.
Exactly.
Shutting schools and hospitals.
The hurricane.
Yeah.
You know,
people don't even have lights, and they want to promote another day of war. So, we all work too hard.
All right, quiz question. Look at Eastern Europe. All the countries that were talking about liberalism and openness and modernization. Where are they? They were overthrown. But North Korea, Democratic Korea, stuck to a hard line, Marxist-Leninist line, saying our enemy is in U.S. And they're still there. They've been through horrific hardships. They've been through famines. They've been through 50 years of siege, but they're still there. Why? Because they haven't abandoned Marxism-Leninism. They have stuck pure to their Marxist principles. They're still there. Any government on this earth would have been overthrown from what they endured, but they're still there. That is a testament to how close the Korean Workers' Party is with the average Korean worker. The average Korean worker knows that the U.S. killed 3 million of their people. The average Korean worker knows that if the U.S. came in, they would be far worse off. They know what the U.S. government, what the banks and the corporations have to offer. It's misery. And that's why they're never going to surrender. For the last 50 years, they've been saying North Korea is about to fall. North Korea is about to collapse. But it hasn't happened yet, has it? Every time I open the paper, North Korea is about to collapse. But they're not collapsing, they're getting stronger. They've got nuclear weapons. They've got satellites in outer space. They're not growing any weaker. This film is designed to demonize them and get us to support our government in its attacks on the Korean people. But we don't support that. We don't support Wall Street and its war drive. We need jobs, not war. We need housing, not war. We need to tear down the prisons. Our enemy's on Wall Street. It's the bankers. It's not the Korean people. Tear down the prisons. Fire the NYPD. That's fighting terrorism. That's fighting the invaders.
I suggest they go on YouTube and Google propaganda film.
So anyway, and we even took the protest into the movie theater eventually. You know, I'll show you that part.
Mic check!
Mic check!
Mic check!
Mic check!
Red Dawn!
Red Dawn
is a lying war propaganda film.
is a lying war propaganda film.
Korea wants peace.
Korea wants peace.
Korea wants peace with the U.S.
Korea wants peace with the U.S.
The U.S. is occupying South Korea.
The U.S. is occupying South Korea.
This film
is
designed to whip us up into a war drive.
Whip us into a war drive.
Yeah. So, yeah, we did that. And you know, hey, 15 people shouting outside a movie theater in Times Square, going into a movie theater. You think, hey, you know, I filmed it with my phone, or I filmed it with like a little camera I had. I don't think I had a camera in my phone back then, but we filmed it. So what came of that? A lot, actually. A lot came of that. To this day, I have never had a protest that had such a big impact as that. So, first of all, a number of conservative news outlets did stories about this protest, right? Shocked. There was an article in National Review magazine. I kid you not. National Review. Occupy Wall Street supports North Korea. That was the name of the article. Occupy Wall Street supports North Korea was the name of the video. And it was the name of their article. It's still up. You can read the article in National Review, December 5th, 2012. They ran an article mentioning that we had this protest. Right? It got quite a bit of attention in the conservative media, right? How dare, they're trying to, talk about Occupy Wall Street. We're all a bunch of communists and traitors to our country and, opposing the free market, etc. And so National Review ran an article about it. The other thing that happened was that there's a lot of like blogs and such that follow North Korea. A lot of which are U.S. intelligence connected, right? There's one called NK News that I think you have to pay at this point. Originally it was free. They did a piece on it. And so, this got around. I then found out through communists in Germany that video, because of the amount of attention that we got in National Review and other places, that video ended up being shown on North Korean television. North Korea showed that video on state TV, right? Again, it was just 15 people outside a movie theater, me and a few of my friends from Montclair State and Occupy Wall Street. And, and we waved our flags. We waved North Korean flags. We went into the lobby of the movie theater and shouted, and it ended up being shown on North Korean television. Now, North Korea is a country with tens of millions of people living in it. And, there's not that many different TV channel options nowadays in America. We've got, satellite TV. We can watch hundreds of different channels. Not like that in North Korea. And millions of people in North Korea saw a video of me and my friends, going into the movie theater, and it got all this attention in right-wing media. And I mean, the amount of news articles about that protest is not small. They just kept coming. So a year later, December of 2013, I went to the World Youth Festival, which was the gathering, the World Festival of Youth and Students, the gathering of communists. It's one of the old Soviet institutions, the World Youth Festival. I went to their gathering in Quito, Ecuador. And North Korea was one of the main sponsors of that festival. And I will never forget the moment when we arrived. We all arrived in the airport in Quito, Ecuador, and you don't need a visa to go to Ecuador. We arrived in the country, and if we were there for the festival, they directed you to a certain part of the airport. So I was at a certain part of the airport, and there's different people from different countries trading newspapers, etc. And then word went out that the plane from North Korea had just landed. And so the airport got silent. And we're all in this special part of the airport, and the airport got silent. And then the doors flew open with a bang, and in marched the North Koreans. The men were wearing suits and ties. The women were wearing traditional Korean gowns, and they marched in like perfect military formation. And the airport, full of hundreds of people for this global communist gathering, was silent, just dead silent. And then one person started applauding. And then another person started applauding. And pretty soon we were all on our feet, screaming and yelling and cheering for the North Koreans. And tears rolled down my face. Tears rolled down my face. And I felt, this is where I belong. These are my people. Right? I thought about all the people that the U.S. government and U.S. imperialism killed on the Korean Peninsula during the Korean War, and I was just overwhelmed, and it was one of the most deeply moving experiences of my life. And at the festival, the North Koreans had this very big tent that was their tent, where they had daily presentations explaining the Juche ideology, explaining the teachings of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-un and Kim Jong-il and etc. And we got to meet with the North Koreans. That's me, with representatives of the Kim Il-sung youth of North Korea at the World Youth Festival in 2013. Well, they had seen the video of us protesting the movie Red Dawn. They knew who I was. They were very friendly. And they gave me some books that I still have, right? They gave me this book, History of the Revolutionary Activities of Kim Il-sung. And I've got a couple other books they gave. Oh, right. Here's the other one that they gave me. Right. This is a biography of Kim Il-sung's, Kim Jong-un's mother. Right. The Immortal Woman Revolutionary, it's called. This is the official biography of Pak Young-suk, or what is it? Who is it? It's the biography of, Kim Jong-suk, who is the mother of Kim Jong-un, right? And it is her biography about being a woman revolutionary. Needless to say, I wrote an article for a Russian web magazine, New Eastern Outlook, that I used to write for. And they ended up publishing it in Rodong Sinmun, which is the daily newspaper of North Korea. And that was a big deal. And, moments like that, where, again, it was just a small thing. Just a small thing that we did. I mean, it wasn't huge, but it had a very, very big impact. A very, very big impact. And at the time, there was an element of shock value to it, right? There was an element of shock. Like, oh my God, these people support North Korea, because nobody supports North Korea. North Korea is supposed to be hell on earth. It's supposed to be the most evil country that ever existed. Everyone's starving while Kim Jong-un lives in a palace and, eats babies. And it's supposed to be, just supposed to be the worst country that ever existed. But we were brave enough. People were brave enough to go out into the streets of New York City, to storm into a movie theater lobby waving North Korea's flag. And everyone was startled. People were just, what? People support North Korea? And it was a big deal. It was a very big deal. Couple about maybe a year or the next year following that, the Harlem Globetrotters went to North Korea, and we saw Dennis Rodman go and visit North Korea. And then, later when Trump got in, we saw the president of the United States visit North Korea. And it was a really big deal that in the capital of capitalism, in New York City, the home of Wall Street, there were people marching through the streets with the North Korean flag. It was a big deal. It was a very, very big deal. And I'm glad we did it. And it meant a lot. It really changed the conversation. And it shows you that you can do things without a huge amount of money, without a huge amount of resources, that can have a really big splash. Right? Again, it didn't require that much effort on our part. We made some signs out of cardboard. We ordered some North Korean flags on the internet. We went to a movie theater. We filmed, it's a crappy video. I mean, it was like a crappy camera we were filming with. I don't even think I had a camera on my phone at that point. But yet, look what happened, right? And then look at what that ultimately led to, right? Of meeting the North Koreans. And it shows you that if you take this seriously and you're genuine, you can have a very big impact. And that's one story I wanted to share with all of you. I've been doing this quite some time, and I know what I'm doing. Moments like that, where it requires you to be creative and innovate, right? We saw there was an anti-North Korean film. We thought, what can we do? And we found a way to intervene, right? And that's what it means to be an anti-imperialist, and to be an effective revolutionary organizer means that you're looking for an opening. You're always looking for an opening. And we found an opening. there was an anti-North Korean film. They were showing it at the main movie theater in Times Square. So we intervened. And often I find myself, it's almost like I'm an engineer, where I'm presented with certain circumstances in life, certain resources, certain abilities. I can do this, I can do that. And so I see a situation and I say, how can I advance the struggle against globalism? How can I advance the struggle against imperialism with the people that I've got to work with? What can we do? And we do it. And it has an impact. And if you look at a lot of what we have done over the years, that's what we do. We see an opening and we intervene, and with limited resources and with limited membership abilities, with a small group of people with limited resources, we're able to see an opening and run through it. We see a crack in the imperialist order, a crack in the imperialist narrative, and we run through it and we intervene. And that is an important way to operate, is to be constantly trying to figure out, based on what you've got and who you've got and what you're trying to achieve, how you can make a breakthrough, how you can get something done, and how you can advance things. But I've got more stories to tell you. I was going to open with this story, but I thought, opening with a story of Occupy Wall Street in this day and age, when left and right are so confused and Occupy Wall Street was so long ago, opening with a story of Occupy Wall Street would be kind of stupid. So I decided, rather than opening with this story, I decided I would open with that North Korea bit. But this happened. And this happened during Occupy Wall Street. And I'm very glad that this happened. But it was a day that I learned something very, very, very important. And that was, we were having some kind of protest. Occupy Wall Street, the camp existed, Zuccotti Park in, lower Manhattan, was all the tents were set up there. The Occupy Wall Street people were there. And my political group, we were going to be part of the demonstration, we were going to march. We had signs and we were going to march through Occupy Wall Street to talk about police brutality or something like that. So what happened? Well, I was in a car with people and they dropped me off near the Occupy Wall Street Park with a bundle of signs that I was to hold and wait until they parked the car, and then they would come meet me and we would walk down to the park. So I got out of the car that these people got out with my bundle of signs, and I stood there down by Occupy Wall Street. And there I was. And, if you go down by Wall Street in particular, right across, there's like Broadway, the Avenue, and then there's Wall Street, which is a very short street, which is where the New York Stock Exchange is. And then on the other side of Broadway, there's a very big church called Trinity Church. It's just a very, very old church. That's very old. It's been like from the 1700s. It's an old church. There's a graveyard there. And it's just this really old church that's in lower Manhattan. So I'm standing there on the public sidewalk outside of Trinity Church. And I'm standing there and I got my bundle of signs. And I'm standing there. At this point, I had long hair and a beard. And, I'm just a sloppy young guy with a ripped up leather jacket. And I'm standing there by Trinity Church. A security guard from inside the church walks out, an older lady. Now, I don't quite understand what this was really about, but I kind of get it, right? Since Occupy Wall Street had begun, there were a lot of how do I put this? There were a lot of crazy people that were coming to Occupy Wall Street. A lot of drug addicts, a lot of people with mental health issues were just kind of convening at Occupy Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street, I was part of it, but I am its harshest critic. I'll tell you that the appeal was very much trying to recreate the 1960s. It was very hippy-dippy, and there was a lot of drugged up people that were not there for politics. There was a big grunge, degrowth. I don't know. Occupy Wall Street, the overall message was good, that Wall Street and the global financial system is bad, but it was mixed in with a lot of hippie stuff and degrowth. It wasn't a real working class movement of any kind. It was very much a collection of lumpen and counterculture elements, right? But, you know, I'm glad I was there. It was a good experience for me. I mean, it served some kind of political purpose. The Democrats were trying to push back against the Tea Party, and so they organized their own protest movement, I guess, and it was called Occupy Wall Street. So I was there with my bundle of signs, and I'm there, and I guess there were a lot of crazy people in the area, and so I guess Trinity Church probably had hired this security guard because there were probably crazy people from Occupy Wall Street trying to walk into Trinity Church and, you know, pee on the floor or something like that, and they didn't want that. I assume that's what was going on, but regardless, I'm standing on a public sidewalk, mind you, outside of Trinity Church with my bundle of signs, waiting for other people to join me. And I'm standing there waiting, and this security guard from inside of Trinity Church walks out. It's like an older lady, and she's angry. I don't know what she's angry about. Maybe some crazy people went into Trinity Church and made a scene or whatever. But I was on a public sidewalk. I wasn't inside of Trinity Church. I was standing on a public sidewalk. And this woman in her security guard uniform walks over. "You can't be here. You can't. You're not allowed to be here." And I thought, yeah, I can. And I said to her, "Yes, I can. This is a public street. I can be here." "No, you can't. You're blocking the sidewalk, and you could be in front of the entrance, and somebody could be trying to get into the building. You got to move. You got to move. You can't be standing here. You can't be standing here." And I said, "No, I don't have to move. Like, this is a public street, and I'm not blocking your door, and I'm just standing here waiting for my friends. I have every right in the world to be here. So, you know, I don't know what you're right. No, you can't be here. You understand? You cannot be here." And then something clicked in my mind. And I realized that there was really no point in talking to this woman, because I had every right to stand on a public street. She was not a police officer. She did not have a gun and a badge. She was not a police officer. She was a private security guard. And I realized I just don't need to talk to you. You don't exist. And so I just put her out of my mind. And she's standing there. "Hello, I'm talking to you. You can't be here. I am going to call the police. You are going to get arrested." I just stood there. And it was like she didn't exist. And I just started thinking about whatever I wanted to think about. I didn't respond to anything she said. I just stood there on the street corner as this woman in her private security guard uniform is yelling at me and telling me I have to move. And I just didn't engage. I just decided to make her not a part of my reality. You don't exist. And she continued yelling, "You can't be here. Oh my God. You have." And I just kept ignoring her. I didn't respond to anything she said. I didn't look at her. My eyes kind of glazed over. And I thought, you don't exist. You don't exist. I have no reason to acknowledge you. There's clearly nothing I can say to you that's going to convince you I have the right to be on this public street. And so I just stood there. And after a while, she just walked away. She went back inside the church because there was nothing she could do. And it was almost like magic. It was like I had performed a magic trick by ignoring her. I was not doing, there was nothing supernatural involved in the process. But she couldn't touch me, right? Because that would be assault. I was not on her property. And that by just ignoring her and just putting her out of my mind, I had completely disarmed her. She was completely castrated, completely neutralized. Right? It almost reminds me of like there's old comic books where there's like a, I think in the old Superman comics, there's like a character who goes after Superman, but the way to make him disappear is you have to trick him into saying his own name or something like that. And if you trick him into saying his own name, he disappears. Or like it's like the vampire. If you hold up the cross, the vampire goes and it goes away. It was like that. And that if I didn't talk to her, if I did not talk to her, she didn't exist. If she realized that talking to me was basically the equivalent of talking to a wall or talking to a doorknob, she was going to stop talking to me. And all she had was talking to me. That was all she had. That was her only power as a security guard, was talking to me. Maybe if she had a security license and I was actually inside the church, maybe she'd be able to like escort me out or something. But I was in a public place. And so I just, not listening to you. You don't exist. And suddenly she was just at a loss. And suddenly she just walked away because she had nothing. She had nothing. Right? She had nothing. Her only power was to engage me in some kind of argument. And if I made the decision to not do that, to not engage in that kind of argument with her, she had nothing. She had nothing. She was a completely powerless woman. She was a low-wage employee in a uniform. I don't know why she got it in her head that I wasn't allowed to be on the public street outside of this church on a public street. I was. I don't know who, maybe someone sent her out there to bother. I don't know what was going through her mind. Maybe people had come in and she was trying to prevent people from coming in. So she thought I don't know why she was doing that. But she had absolutely nothing but her voice. And so if I just chose not to engage her voice, and she was gone. And within a couple minutes, within 1 or 2 minutes of me just not looking at her, looking straight ahead, she's waving her hands in front of my face. Hello, I'm talking to you. And you don't exist. And she was done. And I learned that that is actually the best way to deal with security guards. If there's anyone watching this right now who's engaged in any form of protest or disruption, that is the best way to deal with security guards, is don't engage them. Just don't. Just don't, right? Security guards are very afraid of being sued. They're very, very afraid of being sued. And, they just, if you're dealing with a security guard and they're yelling at you or something, just don't, right? Just don't talk to them. Just they're powerless. They are powerless, really, when it gets down to it. And from that day forward, for the next few years, I engaged in all kinds of protests, right? There was something about Bangladesh. There was something. And so we were protesting clothing stores in New York City, and we would walk into the stores and unfurl our banner in the middle of the stores and start yelling. And security guards, you got to leave the building right now. No, we wouldn't. We just stand there with our banner. Not say nothing. Right? Takes a while for the actual police to get there. When the actual police come, you want to leave. Leave before the actual police show up. But, we'd be in the middle of a department store with our banner, and some security guard be talking at me, and I would just, And I learned that is actually, if you really want to magically deflate a security guard, just don't talk to them. Just don't engage with it. And I felt amazingly powerful. I felt, wow, this is like the cheat code, right? It's like playing a video game. This is the cheat code for when you face a security guard, go blank, right? And if you can do that, you will feel amazingly powerful. Amazingly powerful. It is an amazingly powerful thing to be able to deflate some big security guard who's trying to, push you around by just shutting down, just tuning them out, right? It is an amazingly powerful feeling to be able to just render a security guard completely powerless by not talking to them. And it's actually, in terms of activism, and this is what I did learn, of all the things I learned from Occupy Wall Street, this is probably one of them, is, we used to do that thing they call the mic check. You saw it in the video, where we'd go into a public building and we would start shouting. That's not illegal, right? They can kick you out of the building for doing it. If you refuse to leave the building at that point, then you're trespassing. But generally, if you go into a public building in which the public is allowed to go in, you can go into a public building and make a ruckus and leave. And that is one thing that you can do. And nobody can stop you from doing it. The reason we don't do it, and this is what's so interesting, the reason we don't do it is because it's very uncomfortable. It's awkward to go into a public building and make a ruckus, right? It's awkward to, it's an awkward thing to do, right? If you're in the store and, you start yelling in the middle of a store, that's, it's not illegal, right? You're not going to go to jail for yelling in the middle of a store, right? I mean, you go into a store and you start yelling, they call security and security tells you to leave. That's not illegal. Crazy homeless people do it all the time, not for a good cause either. And the ability to protest and disrupt in everyday life, it's actually quite an easy thing to do. We just don't do it because we're afraid of being judged. We just don't do it because we're afraid people will look at us weird. People will judge us. Well, guess what? People are already judging us, right? And it's actually, if you can just get to the point that you can go into a public building and start yelling, that you can face down a security guard who just, oh, you can't be here, and you just block them out. The amount of power that you will discover within yourself is amazing. You will feel like a very, very strong person. You will feel like, shit, I am quite powerful. It's a really, really empowering experience. And, I see what Jose Vega does with his disruptions that he does. And it's a similar kind of thing. It requires, you have to win a psychological battle with yourself, right? You have to be willing to go into a room and understand that everyone is going to get really mad at you. And the whole room is going to strongly disapprove of what you do. And still do it and not care, right? That's the trick. You have to not care. You have to not care. Right? And we're all trained to care. We're all trained to be very weak. We're all trained to be afraid of what other people might think, afraid of other people disapproving of what we do. That's what we're all trained to do, right? To be very afraid of the other people who are going to look at us and disapprove of what we are doing. But it's actually quite empowering to just learn to not care about that disapproval. And instead, to be more concerned about your message and more concerned about the cause than to, be worried about anything else. So I wanted to share that with you all as well. You know, that is a story that did involve Occupy Wall Street, but it's not an Occupy Wall Street story. It's a story about psychology. It's a story about personal empowerment. And I think there's a lot there, right? That we all have been trained by life to think that that person yelling at us because they happen to be in a security guard uniform is powerful. They are not. We have all been trained by life to think I could never go into Sears or some store and stand on a table and start yelling about politics. I could never do that. Yes, you can. Right? There are certain rules that we all follow, certain social norms that we all obey that are not real and that can be broken. And if you actually break them, you can feel very powerful very quickly. You will have a spiritual awakening to some degree or other if you can learn to break social norms easily. You can learn that I can be in a room where everyone's going to hate me really soon because I'm disrupting, and I don't care. You can learn that that security guard who's shouting at me and telling me I have to move can't really do anything. You know, you can learn very quickly that as a human being, with your boldness and your willingness, you can really change the world. And that there is a spiritual dynamic to all of this. This isn't all simply about material. I mean, there is, you know, that if you can start to do this, right? If you can start to push boundaries, if you can start to learn to just not engage and just not respond to those who are challenging you or being hostile to you, there is a huge amount of power in that. Some situations it's easier than others. But if you can learn to be empowered by your inner sense of righteousness, your inner confidence that what you are doing is correct and needs to be done, and if that can be the main motivating factor behind your behavior, not the feedback you're getting from the room you're in at the time, not the people shouting at you, not the people disapproving of you, not the person in a uniform trying to get you to move. If you can suddenly learn that the voice in your head and the voice in your heart is more important to you than what you're seeing, the visual feedback you're getting from the world around you, you can suddenly do things that will push the conversation, push the world around you, and embolden the forces of right in a way that you never realized you had the ability to do. You can do some serious shit. When you learn to not fear the social consequences, to not fear the disapproval of others, you can do some serious shit. You can do some serious shit. Yes, you can. But anyway, there's a couple other things I wanted to talk to you about. I hope you all are enjoying the stream tonight. We're always having great conversations on here. If you do have a question for the second half of the program, the way to send it is to send it via Rumble Rant, or to send it as to Caleb Maupin 22 on Cash App. That is the main way to send your questions for the second half of the show. So yeah, if you've got a question for the second half of the show, I see a couple Rumble Rants are already in, and I look forward to answering those Rumble Rants. Yeah, there's 3 of them already. So yeah, by all means, send your questions via Rumble Rant or via Super Cash App Super Chat. But I wanted to talk about a couple other things. There's a story for you. A lot of people don't know, but there's a figure who's very famous in China's history, who is a Canadian. And his name is Norman Bethune. And Norman Bethune, he's a Canadian surgeon And he is a national hero of China, and is a dude from Canada. Where did Norman Bethune come from? Where did Norman Bethune come from? Norman Bethune was a wealthy surgeon in Canada, and he had very little politics. I mean, he was just a dude. He was just a medical doctor from a wealthy family who lived in Canada. And one day, he was walking through the streets of the city he was in, and I believe it was in Montreal, Canada. He was walking through the streets of Montreal, Canada, and he saw an unemployed demonstration, randomly, completely randomly, of communists protesting unemployment. And that was a thing that the communists did during the Great Depression, is they would mobilize, they would get big crowds of poor people to assemble and demand jobs and demand relief. And they would go to City Hall and loudly demand jobs. And, they would go to, the US Congress and loudly demand jobs. And they would just, form big gatherings of desperately poor, unemployed, semi-homeless people that were rendered impoverished by the Great Depression, who were literally starving. People were literally dying of malnutrition in the United States during the Great Depression. And they would get them in big mobs, and they would assemble, and they would have what they called hunger marches or unemployment marches. This was probably one of the most effective things the Communist Party of the United States, the Communist Party of Canada did, is they would just get together big crowds of hungry people and bring them to government office buildings, demanding that the government do something about their poverty. And it was a very, very effective thing they did, a very, very simple thing. But, when there's a lot of very, very poor people, a lot of very desperately poor people created by the economic crisis, and you have an organization that can mobilize them, it was a very effective thing. International Unemployment Day, March 6th, 1931. They had unemployed demonstrations in every major city in the Western world. And, they had huge hunger marches in Washington, D.C. There was the bonus army, where they got unemployed veterans to occupy the National Mall, for weeks. And hundreds and actually thousands of unemployed veterans occupied the National Mall, demanding that they be paid a veteran's benefit, veteran's bonus. And that this was a thing that the communists did. And in Canada, in Montreal, that's what they were doing. And the communists had a big unemployed demonstration. And this unemployed demonstration was being attacked by the police. There were police on horseback who were clubbing the unemployed demonstration. And Norman Bethune saw people being clubbed, people that were injured. And so he started providing medical assistance. And he saw someone who was hurt. They were on the ground. And so he walked over as a doctor with his medical bag and started helping the unemployed person who'd been clubbed or kicked by a horse or something like that. And what happened? Well, the police thought he was part of the protest. And so they arrested him, took him to jail. And so here's this wealthy doctor who had nothing to do with the protest, who knew nothing about it, but he was providing medical care to somebody. So they arrested him, took him to jail. And in jail, I don't know if you've ever been arrested before. I have, unfortunately. And one thing about being arrested is it is very, very boring. It's very, very boring. You would think it's very, very exciting. It's actually not. Sitting in a holding cell is one of the most boring experiences that I've ever had, because you don't have anything. They basically take anything to entertain yourself is confiscated, right? You can't have your phone. You can't have anything when you're arrested, basically. So, you just kind of sit there. You just kind of sit there and you have no idea. And eventually they call you, take you before the judge, and, you're released or whatever. But sitting in a holding cell is very, very, very boring. It is a very boring experience. And Norman Bethune was arrested, and he was in a holding cell with all these other people that were at this unemployment demonstration, and they were all communists. And they started talking to him about communism and started talking to him about the medical system of the Soviet Union, about providing medical care. And anyway, he came out of that jail cell and he became very, very interested in the idea of creating some kind of socialized healthcare system to provide medical care for the people. And so after he was arrested, he went to the Soviet Union to see it for himself. And he liked what he saw. Came back to Canada and joined the Communist Party. Became a member of the Communist Party of Canada. And then, when Spain was having the Spanish Civil War, the elected government, the Spanish Republic, was being overthrown by Franco, the fascist, who was backed by Nazi Germany and Italy. Spain called for volunteers. And Norman Bethune volunteered. And he went and fought. He didn't fight. He went and became a medical volunteer for the Spanish Republic. And then when Japan invaded China, they called again for volunteers. And Dr. Norman Bethune went to China. And he was a medical volunteer for the Red Army that was fighting the Japanese invaders. And during the time that he was in China, he cut himself. And he got an infection. And he died in China. And when Dr. Norman Bethune died in China as a medical volunteer helping the Japanese Red Army, helping the Chinese Red Army fight off the Japanese invaders, Mao Zedong gave a speech at his funeral. And it's one of Mao's most famous essays in memory of Norman Bethune. It's the speech that Mao Zedong gave at the funeral of Dr. Norman Bethune. I will post it here. And it's not very long. It's rather short, but it's 4 paragraphs. In fact, I will read it now because it is only 4 paragraphs. It is not that long. This is Mao's speech in memory of Dr. Norman Bethune. Comrade Norman Bethune, a member of the Communist Party of Canada, was around 50 when he was sent by the Communist Party of Canada and the United States to China. He made light of traveling thousands of miles to help us in our war of resistance against Japan. He arrived in Yunnan in the spring of last year, and he went to work in the Wutei Mountains, and to our great sorrow died, a martyr, at his post. What kind of spirit is this that makes a foreigner selflessly adopt the cause of the Chinese people's liberation as his own? It is the spirit of internationalism, the spirit of communism, from which every Chinese communist must learn. Leninism teaches that the world revolution can only succeed if the proletariat of the capitalist countries supports the struggle for liberation of the colonial and semi-colonial peoples, and if the proletariat of the colonies and semi-colonies supports the proletariat of the capitalist countries. Comrade Bethune put this Leninist line into practice. We Chinese communists must follow this line in our practice. We must unite with the proletariat of all the capitalist countries, with the proletariat of Japan, Britain, the United States, Germany, Italy, and all other capitalist countries. For this is the only way to overthrow imperialism, to liberate our nation and people, and to liberate the other nations and peoples of the world. This is our internationalism, the internationalism with which we oppose both narrow nationalism and narrow patriotism. Comrade Bethun's spirit, his utter devotion to others without any thought of self, was shown in his great sense of responsibility in his work and his great warm-heartedness toward all comrades and the people. Every communist must learn from him. There are not a few people who are irresponsible in their work, preferring the light and shirking the heavy, passing the burdensome tasks on to others and choosing the easy ones for themselves. At every turn, they think of themselves before others. When they make some small contribution, they swell with pride and brag about it for fear that others will not know. They feel no warmth toward comrades and the people, but are cold and indifferent and apathetic. In truth, such people are not communists, or at least cannot be counted as devoted communists. No one who returned from the front failed to express admiration for Bethun whenever his name was mentioned, and none remained unmoved by his spirit. In the Shanxi, Chahar, Hopei border area, no soldier or civilian was unmoved who had been treated by Dr. Bethun or had seen how he worked. Every communist must learn this true communist spirit from Comrade Bethun. Comrade Bethun was a doctor. The art of healing was his profession, and he was constantly perfecting his skill, which stood very high in the 8th Route Army's medical service. His example is an excellent lesson for those who wish to change their work the moment they see something different, and for those who despise technical work as of no consequence or as promising no future. Comrade Bethun and I met only once. Afterwards, he wrote me many letters, but I was busy, and I wrote him only one letter, and did not even know if he ever received it. I am deeply grieved over his death. Now we are all commemorating him, which shows how profoundly his spirit inspires everyone. We must all learn the spirit of absolute selflessness from him. With this spirit, everyone can be useful to the people. A man's ability may be great or small, but if he has this spirit, he is already noble-minded and pure, a man of moral integrity and above vulgar interests, a man who is of value to the people. And that is the speech that Mao Zedong gave at the memorial for Dr. Norman Bethun. If someone wants to know how to spell his name, Norman Bethun. That's the speech that Mao gave in honor of the Canadian doctor, Norman Bethun, who gave his life for the Chinese people in their struggle against Japan and Japan's invasion during the Second World War. And it's worth revisiting. And it's worth thinking about it. Because it's that kind of spirit through which real movements are created. And Mao Zedong would certainly not have appreciated this. Mao was an atheist. I don't know if Dr. Norman Bethun was an atheist. He might have been. But that attitude is very Christian. And if one reads the Gospels and the message of Jesus Christ, living for the sake of others, one will find that very similar sentiment that Mao was honoring about Dr. Norman Bethune. Furthermore, in the first paragraph, there is a political message that is extremely important, which I do not understand how people have forgotten this. I do not understand. I really don't. I really don't. I am going to go off a little bit here. Forgive me. Forgive me for going off a little bit. But there are some things that are not worth getting angry about, and there are some things that are worth getting a little bit angry about. And at risk of perhaps making some folks uncomfortable, I will reveal a bit of my anger. Because this is in the first paragraph, he says, Leninism teaches that the world revolution can only succeed if the proletariat of the capitalist countries supports the struggle for the liberation of the colonial and semi-colonial peoples, and if the proletariat of the colonies and semi-colonies supports that of the proletariat of the capitalist countries. That's a sentence there. And what makes me angry, and the reason that I don't call myself a communist anymore, is because there is not any goddamn communist group in America that understands that. I don't even call myself a communist anymore, and I am more communist than every goddamn communist organization in America, because none of them understand that sentence. We are fighting to break the colonized and oppressed people of the world free from imperialism. And they understand that our struggle to defeat imperialism here in the homeland and to build a government that is not a tool of the global monopolies and corporations is in their interest. And that there is a direct connection between the struggle of the Houthis against Israel and the struggle of the American people for jobs and healthcare and education. There is a direct connection between the peoples of the Donbass and their struggle against the Kiev regime and our struggle in this country for the right to free speech, for the right to freedom of assembly, for the right to not be dragged off to jail if you stand with Russia, the right to not have your life destroyed if you have a political opinion that is different. Our fight for civil rights, for freedom of speech, is tied in with the fight of the Chinese people to not have the United States overthrow their government and recolonize and destroy everything they've built up since 1949. Our fight in the United States for healthcare and jobs and paved roads and education in this country is tied in with the fight of the Palestinians, with the fight of the Yemeni people, with the fight of so many different forces. It is our duty to stand with everyone that the war machine, the Wall Street money sharks, the Pentagon attacks, it is our duty to stand with them. No matter how much the New York Times tells you they're bad people, Caleb, they violate human rights. It is our job to stand with all who are under attack. And that our fight here in America for a country where people have what they need, where we're investing in our children, where we don't have a sick society where profits come first, our fight here in America is intrinsically tied in with their struggle. And for me, that has always been a definitive aspect of my political identity. I have always understood that the people of the world and the people of America have a common destiny, a common struggle against imperialism. That has always been fundamental to my views. And at risk of coming across as a bit angry, I am furious, downright furious, that understanding is at this point completely lost by the clowns who call themselves communists in this country. They don't believe that. They do not believe that. I don't know what they believe. Some of them want to set up worker cooperatives. Some of them want to deport all the white people from America and give it back to the Native Americans. Some of them want to tax the rich and abolish billionaires. I don't know what they want. Communists want all kinds of different crap, but none of them want to stand in solidarity with the people of the world and defeat imperialism. None of them want that. There is not a single communist organization in America that wants that. Not a single one. So I'm not a communist. Why? Because I believe in God, because innovationism is a new stage, because the global anti-imperialist movement is no longer seeking to recreate a Soviet-style economy, because Marxism-Leninism has with it a destructive curse that comes out of the bourgeois revolutions. I've gone over all of this. I have great slideshows about it. We're in a new stage. But if you want to get technical with me, if you want to be namby-pamby with me, if you want to be facetious with me, if you want to be pedantic with me, I am more communist, more Leninist, and the Center for Political Innovation is far more Leninist in our practice than any of the so-called communists in America. And I am dead serious about that. And if you look, go to the About Us website. Go to the CPI website. There's a section called About Us. You will see all that we have done. You will see a timeline of everything that we have done. And everything we do is about demanding a government of action to fight for working families, about standing in solidarity with the people of Russia, the people of China, the people of North Korea, the people of Yemen. That is in every way what we are doing, right? And you can read a timeline of all the stuff that we do. And I mean, it's not that we want to brag about what we're doing, but that's what we do. And you look at thing after thing that we've done in the year 2025, in the year of 2024, in the year of 2023. It is all done with the understanding that this imperialist system, this system of imperialism, globalism, is a threat to all of us, is a threat to all humanity, and that the future of humanity lies in defeating that system. And instead having a system that invests in working people and working communities, and invests in people, that doesn't value speculation, that isn't trying to reduce the population, isn't Malthusian, a system that unleashes human growth and creativity. That is what we are trying to do. And it is only when the productive forces have risen, it is only when a rationally planned economy creates a reality of vast abundance that we can see equality. It is only through expanding the productive forces and having a state that actively enables the economy to continue expanding by overcoming the anarchy of production and the chaos of the market. It is only through that we can achieve the ultimate goal of a world without coercion, a world without enforced hierarchies and oppression. Equality only comes about when the springs of cooperative wealth flow more abundantly. That is the understanding. And it is a celebration of human creativity and brilliance that allows us to get there. And that's the whole thing about self-driving cars. We should have a society where self-driving cars are a good thing, not a bad thing. We should have a society where people don't become homeless because there are too many houses, where people don't become hungry because there is too much food. We need a government of action that will fight for working families to control the economy and unleash human growth, a society that invests in people as the greatest resource of the nation, a society where fictitious capital is eliminated, and instead we have physical economy that builds up communities. This is what we need. We are opposed to the oligarchical conception of mankind. We are opposed to a system where profits are in command. We want a state that oversees and invests in communities. We want to see America reborn in a multipolar world beyond imperialism. That is what we want. That's what we want. That's what we're fighting for. And is that classical Marxism-Leninism? No. Right? We're not fighting for the factory workers to rise up against the factory owners. We are not fighting to destroy bourgeois nationalism. We're not fighting to replace God with our scientific, atheistic, dialectical understanding. It's not classical Marxism-Leninism. It's not. And we don't need classical Marxism-Leninism. And the anti-imperialist countries of the world have largely moved away from that. But in the sense that we are fighting imperialism and we are standing in solidarity with the colonial and semi-colonial people of the world, and that we seek to unify and we see ourselves as united with them, we are more communist than any of the communists are. And what annoys me it's not about what annoys me. Let me just put it this way. I've said many times that what we're dealing with as CPI is very similar to Jesus and his struggle against the Pharisees. We are dealing with legalism. People who enforce the letter of the law but forget the essence of the law. This is you go and read the New Testament of the Bible. The Pharisees are always trying to confront Jesus Christ. And at one point, they corner Jesus, and they say to Jesus, "Aha, tell us, Jesus, which of the 10 commandments is the most important?" And Jesus says, "The most important commandment is to love your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And all the law of Moses and the prophets flows from that." He says none of the 10 commandments are important. The most important thing is to love God and love your fellow man. And at one point, Jesus is healing people of their illnesses on the Sabbath. And in the Jewish religion, you are not supposed to perform any labor on the Sabbath. And they confront Jesus and they say, "Jesus, why are you healing people on the Sabbath?" And Jesus says, "The Sabbath was made for man. Man was not made for the Sabbath." And that really what Jesus was doing is he was restoring the principles and the truths that the Jewish religion had been founded on by telling people they didn't have to follow the letter of the law any longer. That the people were starting to, the letter of the law, obeying the Sabbath, had come to replace loving your neighbor. That following the 10 commandments had come to replace loving God with all your heart and soul and loving your neighbor as yourself. And that Jesus was saying, I am here to talk about right and wrong, not to talk about the letter of the law. Not to talk about how we can follow the rules and how we can find loopholes in the rules and who is the most obeying the rule. I'm not here to to do that. I am here to stand for right and wrong. And I look at that and I think about the principles which made me attracted to communism to begin with, wanting to stand with people against imperialism, wanting to fight for working families, wanting jobs and schools and education, and wanting a society where love and community came above the greed of bankers and monopolies to enrich themselves. And that's what I'm about. And in order to still believe in that, I've got to stop following the letter of the law, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, because communism has turned into something else. Communism has turned into a book club. Communism has turned into a LARP. Communism has turned into a performance. Let me just tell you the truth, folks. I will tell you the truth. A group of black revolutionaries called the People's Democratic Uhuru Movement had their homes raided by the FBI, not because they were accused of any crime. They were not accused of selling drugs. They were not accused of plotting violence. They were not accused of any crime. They were accused of acting as unregistered agents of Russia. It was alleged that because they advocate peace with Russia, that because they have protested against U.S. funding of Ukraine, that constituted being unregistered foreign agents. And so they sent the army, they sent SWAT teams, and they raided their homes, and they flew drones into their houses, and they pointed guns in their face, and they dragged them to federal court, and they almost sent them to prison for 15 years simply because of their speech. They said that their speech supporting Russia constituted being a foreign agent. Now, if you can't understand how dangerous that is, I don't know what to tell you. Anyone with any anti-imperialist bone in their body should realize that's really goddamn dangerous. And if they can do that to them, at that point, being an anti-imperialist becomes illegal. But yet, none of the communist groups did anything for the Uhuru movement. None of them did. I was at the federal court on the day their trial began. Jill Stein was there from the Green Party. She was there. And who else was there? Scott Ritter was there on the day they were sentenced. And Charles Barron of the City Council of New York City, he was at the trial all through it. And he was there at the sentencing. Former New York City councilman who's now a state assemblyman in New York. There were a number of people who understood how dangerous it was. None of them were communists. The communist movement left the Uhuru movement out to dry. And don't tell me, well, Caleb, they made a tweet. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. They made a tweet. Shut up. They wrote an article on their shut up. Were they there at the courthouse? Were they having hands-off Uhuru demonstrations in different parts of the country? Were they? Nobody did anything for them. Tucker Carlson did more to support them than any communist group in America did. Tucker Carlson was a conservative, a Republican, a deeply religious Christian man. He saw that it was really, really dangerous. And Tucker Carlson did more to support the Uhuru movement than any communist organization in America. And if that right there doesn't tell you how absolutely worthless communist groups in America are, I don't know what to tell you. Right? But here's the thing. Helping the Uhuru movement was the right thing to do. Helping the Uhuru movement was the right thing to do. And these people were not concerned about the right thing to do. They're concerned about, what do all the other people on social media think? Right? That was the main reason that communists stopped supporting the Uhuru movement, is because another organization that's a breakaway from their organization got a lot of hate on social media. And because they didn't want to be associated with this other group that split from the Uhuru movement, and because there was a lot of gossip and stupid rumors about this other group, which I don't even know, I don't care about. This other group called Black Hammer that is not part of the Uhuru movement, that broke away. They did a lot of weird stuff on social media to get attention for themselves, some of which was quite offensive. But they're not the Uhuru movement. But because of that, because social media decided that the Uhuru movement was the same as Black Hammer, and social media went into overdrive talking about things that Black Hammer allegedly did, which I don't know that they even did, mind you. I'm not saying that Black Hammer even did these things, but regardless, based on social media gossip and social media rumors and the fear of, I don't want people to think all the communists left the Uhuru movement out to dry. Now, tell me why should we be communists? And why should we be trying to get all these young people with, communist Twitter handles and communist Facebook pages? Why should we be trying to recruit them? If they can't even stand with the Uhuru movement, if they can't even see a group of black activists be targeted in this manner and say, that's wrong, and it doesn't matter, I don't care if they're connected to this other group who did whatever, it's still wrong. If they can't even say that, why am I talking to them? Right? Tucker Carlson is more communist than these communists are. And it makes me angry on the one hand. It makes me angry, but it also says to me that I should not care about these people. And I'm telling you that if you're the kind of person who heard about how the FBI raided the homes of the Uhuru movement and was concerned about it, you should not be a communist anymore. You should be an innovationist, because communists do not care about the Uhuru movement. I am just going to be blatantly real with you. Communists want to look cool on social media. Communists want to buy a communist hat and look in the mirror and say, wow, I'm wearing a communist hat. They want to wear communist shoes and be like, oh, look, I've got communist shoes. They want to yell at their mom and dad and say, I'm a communist, mom and dad. You can't tell me what to do. They want to, watch movies about Che Guevara and fantasize that they are Che Guevara. But none of them thought, hey, the Uhuru movement is on trial for saying the right thing. We should do something about it. And if that is the case, I mean, why would I build a movement around people who can't even defend one of their own? Right? People who can't even, Chairman O'Malley and the Uhuru movement, they've been organizing the African People's Socialist Party since the early 80s. And if they can't even stand with them, why should we care? Right? Why should we care? And there are a lot of people who've joined CPI since we dropped the communist label, who said, Caleb, I would never have joined you if you were a communist group, because the communist stuff confuses me, kind of scares me, but you're out there talking about we need economic growth, we need justice for working families. And you saw a group of black revolutionaries who had their homes raided by the FBI. And, I can understand that. I can understand being there with people when they're being targeted by our satanic government that serves the rich and powerful. I can understand wanting to build schools and hospitals in America rather than bombing Yemen or sending weapons to Ukraine. I can understand that. Everything you say makes sense, but the whole communism thing doesn't make sense. So I'm really glad you dropped it. I'm really glad you dropped it. Somebody the other day said that to me. They said, the day you dropped communism, Caleb, was the day that you made sense to me. Right? And it's sad. And in a weird way, I am more communist than any of these communists are, because none of them understand the duty to stand with people that are under attack, understand the duty to unite the people of the oppressed world with the people of the first world, understand that we're defeating imperialism. So if that's what you think being a communist is, if that's what it means to you, I'm more communist than any of these people. But if being a communist means believing in Marxism, Leninism, I believe in anti-imperialism. I believe in the essence of Leninism. But do I Do I want to build a movement of factory workers to fight their factory employer? No. Do I want to recreate the Soviet Union and have an economy where everything is run by the state? No. Do I believe in the atheistic philosophy of dialectical materialism that says everything is about conflict, everything is defined by clashing? And no, I don't. And am I trying to build a movement among people that all think they're the greatest and are so concerned about, oh, they're so amazing, among people who couldn't even stand with the Uhuru movement? Am I trying to become the king of those people, among the most popular among those people? No, I am not. No, I'm not. No, I am not. Right? I would rather recruit 50 Tucker Carlsons. I would rather recruit 50 working class moms who understand why we have to support the Uhuru movement, who understand why we have to support Yemen, than any internet communist, than 1,000 internet communists, right? And I'm telling you, we're building something. We're building a real organization. We're building a real community, and we are teaching people things that they do not know. People do not know what imperialism is and how it functions. People do not know. You know, one of the best things about CPI, we give out books, right? We got our book on the Houthis that we're giving out. We have our book, What is Innovationism, right? That people are giving out. And one of the best things that we are doing is members of our group are sitting down with people and reading the books. Because people don't know this stuff. And as part of building this organization, as part of recruiting people into the organization, members of our group, shout out to you, you know who you are, multiple members of our group have met new people, and they have sat down with them and read the books, read it together and talked about the content. Right? Now, what's funny is that there are certain people in our circles who think that's stupid. They actually think that's stupid. They think, why would you do that? Well, you would do it because people don't know this stuff. That's why people need to be taught this stuff. That's why. But no, communists, it's all about, oh, I'm so smart. No one can teach me anything. Oh, I know more than you. That's not real. That's not real organizing. People don't know this stuff, and our job is to try and teach it to them. We want to teach people who do not know that imperialism is their enemy, who do not know that we have a common enemy with the Houthis of Yemen, a common enemy with the people of the Donbass and the people of China and the people of Venezuela and Iran. People who don't know that, we're trying to teach them that. We are trying to take people who don't know about this and get them to know about it. That is what we are trying to do. We are trying to take people who have never heard these ideas and have them hear these ideas. We are trying to raise the consciousness of the American people. And communists are not doing that. Communists are trying to out-communist each other. I don't know what they're trying to do, but they ain't doing that. They ain't doing that. And I am proud of the Center for Political Innovation. I am proud of what we do. And I believe in this organization because in this organization, you will find real people and then you will find real, genuine connections. We just reserved the house for the 7-day program. We're trying to figure out about the music that we'll be singing together and playing at the 7-day program. We're trying to figure out different aspects of our upcoming activities in July. This is a real organization. This is real. And the point is to find people who don't already think these things or think they know this stuff and teach it to them. The point is to help people learn by doing and do by learning. If you want to learn things, you got to change things. If you want to change things, you got to learn things. Learning while leading, leading while learning. You learn from correct practical experience. Some things cannot be learned on Wikipedia. Some things cannot be learned from a book. Some things only come from real life. And there's a lot of gimmicks out there, and there's a lot of silliness out there. And we're doing something different. And we have no aspiration to take part in it. And the more that we can separate from communists, the better. The more that we don't talk like communists, the more that we don't sound like communists, the more that we're not thinking about what other communist groups are doing and comparing ourselves, the more that we are not associated with communists, the better. Because communists have failed. Communists have failed, and the communist aesthetic is at this point associated with a group of people who couldn't even defend the Uhuru movement and really have nothing to do with what I just read to you about Dr. Norman Bethune. Nothing to do with that. Nothing. Absolutely nothing to do with that. Folks, we have a job to do with CPI. And that job is to awaken the American people, to oppose imperialism, to demand a government of action that fights for working families. That is what our job is. Our job is to connect the struggle of the people around the world against this dying globalist imperialist system with the struggle of the American people for a new economy, for jobs, for healthcare, for education, etc. That is our job. And our job is to get that message to people who have never heard it before. And our job is to awaken the consciousness of the American people and to build a network of people who can carry out operations, who can depend on each other and rely on each other, and to eventually set up buildings that can operate in communities and carry out projects to benefit people while teaching them. We need to build the church of our time. Right? During the Roman Empire, amid the Roman Empire, the satanic, evil Roman Empire, where infanticide was a daily reality of life. Within the Roman Empire, the barbaric, evil Roman Empire, there were a group of Jews from Palestine who began worshiping Jesus the carpenter. And as they demanded that their employers pay them a better wage and went on strike, the bricklayers and the carpenters and the pipe fitters and the blacksmiths and the basket weavers, as the skilled tradesmen, the proletariat of ancient Rome began to organize, and as they built orphanages for the homeless children of Rome, and as they formed their guilds and associations to demand better treatment from the employers, and as they organized to assert their humanity inside of one of the most barbaric empires that ever existed, they worshiped Jesus the carpenter, the man who gave his life for truth and justice, the man who faced horrendous persecution and ultimately died for daring to stand up for truth and justice and righteousness. And they worshiped Jesus, and they understood that one day Jesus would return, and he would tear down the evil empires of this world, and he would create a world where the light of God shone forever, where the water of the river flowed on either side of the tree of life, and there was no more curse, and every tear was dried. And that movement that was created in ancient Rome, that movement within the heart of a mighty empire that sought to set humanity free from that dark empire, that said infant babies shouldn't be killed, and that infanticide was a barbaric practice, that movement that said empathy and kindness and compassion was necessary, that movement that said that what they were doing in the Colosseums, feeding people to animals and torturing people alive, was something that should be stopped and should be opposed. That movement that said the last shall be first and the first shall be last. That movement that said whoever gains his life shall lose it, but whoever loses his life for the cause of righteousness shall gain it. That movement served an important purpose. Served a very important purpose. But it was co-opted. It was persecuted, was suppressed. Many people were martyred and killed for their belief in Christianity. But it proliferated for generation after generation. And eventually, as the Roman Empire was deteriorating, as the Roman Empire was collapsing on its own weight, as a last-ditch effort to try and save their empire, Constantine announced that the Roman Empire was now Christian. And in a last-ditch effort to save their empire, they adopted a watered-down, namby-pamby version of Christianity as the official version, the official religion of the Roman Empire to try and keep their empire together. And it didn't work. It was not successful, and they were quite defensive about it. One of the most important books in the history of at least Western Christianity, or Western, not Orthodox, but Western Christianity, is a book called The City of God, written by St. Thomas Augustine, right? St. Augustine, right? And St. Augustine, he's very defensive because Rome, the biggest empire in the world at the time, collapsed. At the same time, it officially became Christian. And that's a little bit of an embarrassing thing, right? If this big, mighty empire falls the second it adopts your religion, it's a little embarrassing. Well, the reason that Christianity did not save the Roman Empire is because the teachings of Jesus were not intended to help you build a mighty empire. The teachings of Jesus were not intended to help you colonize and enslave and oppress other people. The teachings of Jesus were not intended to help you build a gigantic, mighty city that is extracting slaves and tribute from all across the planet and torturing and murdering and whipping and flogging and feeding people to lions and bashing babies' skulls in. That's not what the teachings of Jesus were designed to help you to do. So the idea that Christianity was going to save the Roman Empire, it just wasn't going to happen. Christianity was not going to save the Roman Empire. Christianity was the antithesis of the Roman Empire. And as the Roman Empire was deteriorating into barbarism, as a last-ditch effort, they watered down and adjusted and corrupted, and they came up with their own weak-ass version of Christianity. And they said, this is our new religion. And they hoped it would save their empire. And it didn't. And it didn't. But why does that matter, Caleb? Why does that matter? Why in the world are you talking about Jesus and the Roman Empire and the Roman proletariat and all this? Why does that matter? I'll tell you why it matters. I will tell you why it matters. I will tell you why the Roman Empire matters. Do I still have this graphic? Yes, I do. This is Rosa Luxemburg, the great German Marxist, anti-war activist, martyr. This is what she said. At the time World War I was breaking out, Rosa Luxemburg, she refused to support the war. And her political party, the German Social Democratic Party, supported the war, and she called them out. She wrote pamphlets against it. She urged Germans not to go fight in World War I. They threw her in prison for opposing the war. She wrote a pamphlet called the Junius Pamphlet, opposing World War I and calling out her own political party, the Social Democrat Party of Germany, for collaborating with the war. They threw her in prison for writing it. And she spent World War I in a jail cell for her anti-war activism, for demanding peace, and for saying that working people in Germany shouldn't go and die for the Kaiser. They shouldn't go and die to help the Belgians, and shouldn't go and die to help the Turks colonize and oppress the Arab people. They shouldn't go and die so that Germany can seize a bigger chunk of Africa than the British and the French have. And Rosa Luxemburg was thrown in prison. And the pamphlet that she wrote before she was thrown in prison, the Junius pamphlet. This is a quote from the pamphlet. Quote, "This world war is a regression into barbarism. The triumph of imperialism leads to the annihilation of civilization. At first, this happens sporadically for the duration of a modern war. But then, when the period of unlimited wars begins, it progresses towards its inevitable consequences. The triumph of imperialism and the collapse of all civilization, as in ancient Rome, depopulation, desolation, degeneration, great cemetery." Rosa Luxemburg was warning us well over 100 years ago that World War I would eventually lead to where we are today. World War I, what began with World War I, a brutal, murderous war in which 20 million people died as the imperialists and the colonizers battled for control of the world. World War I was the beginning of the global system of imperialism collapsing from within and reaching a state where war was unlimited, where war was no longer sporadic, war was constant. And that would be the beginning of the end. And that would be the way that the Roman Empire deteriorated into barbarism. That would be the beginning of the so-called West, the collective West. Germany, France, Britain, America, Belgium, Italy. That would be the beginning of the end of the collective West. And the collective West, Western civilization, would deteriorate just as the Roman Empire deteriorated, because imperialism annihilates civilization. You cannot be civilized when you are brutalizing, terrorizing, torturing, bombing, and killing somebody else. And a civilization, an economic order that is based on keeping people around the world in poverty, on endless military conflicts, endless destabilization, the kind of system that had to take Libya, the most prosperous country on the African continent, and bomb and destroy it and create a society so unstable and so ruinous that there are modern-day slave markets there. A society that foments drug gangs and drug cartels and has to keep its neighbors to the south in a state of constant violence and chaos just to maintain its dominance. A system that funds Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists to destroy Syria and replaces a stable government in Syria with a government of Al-Qaeda supporters. A system that spends billions and billions and billions of dollars on prolonging a war in Ukraine when it can't even pay to keep its own bridges intact, when its own bridges and highways are falling apart, when its water treatment facilities aren't purifying the water. That system is doomed. That system is doomed. But within the Roman Empire, there was a movement that said, we can do something better. That said, we can create a world of justice. That said, we can change our relationship with the world. We can build a movement that will connect the peoples of the world. We can build a society where greed doesn't come first. And Christianity, the religion of the Roman proletariat, was an attempt to build some kind of movement to stand against the barbarism of Rome. And what we are today, what innovationism is today, is an attempt to build some kind of movement to say that we can get off the road toward collapse. We don't have to go the way of the Roman Empire, depopulation, desolation, degeneration, a great cemetery. There's another way. It's called multipolarity. It's called win-win cooperation. It's called innovationism. It's called investing in communities. It's called a government of action that fights for working families. It's called caring for people. It's called mutual interest. It's called cooperation. It's called brotherhood and sisterhood and community. There is another way. We don't have to go the way of the Roman Empire. We've got to. That's the movement we're trying to build. That's the movement we're trying to build. We're trying to build a movement against imperialism right here in the center of imperialism, to stop the inevitable decline and collapse, to stop the desolation, depopulation, and degeneration, the great cemetery that is the fate of imperialism brought to its conclusion. We are trying to say we don't want to collapse. We're trying to say we want a new America for working families. And that ain't the communist message. Communists want America to collapse. They want to show how woke they are and how anti-racist they are by cheering for America to collapse. They want to show everyone on social media that they can wear a communist hat and a communist t-shirt and that they can be really cool on social media. They want to tell everyone how much white people are. I don't know what they want to do, right? Communists, there's a collection of different mental illnesses in America that call themselves communists right now. But the essence of what communists were when they began and when the Russian Revolution happened, the essence of it was Russia wanted to be a new society, not under the domination of imperialism. The essence of what happened when Mao took power in China was that they wanted a new society for China, not under the domination of imperialism. The essence of the Islamic Revolution of Iran was that they wanted a new society, not under the domination of imperialism. The essence of the Sandinistas of Nicaragua is that they want a new society, not under the domination of imperialism. The essence of what the Houthis are doing in Yemen, read my book on their movement and their history. They want a new society in Yemen, not under the domination of imperialism. The essence of what the people in Africa who are following Ibrahim Traore, this great new African leader who's marching to lead Burkina Faso. The essence of what he's saying is that we need a new society in Burkina Faso and in all of Africa that is not under the domination of imperialism. That is the essence of what it's about. And you can argue with me about dots on I's and crosses on T's. You can argue with me about nitpicky legalism and who wore the right hat and who brushed their teeth on Tuesday. I don't care. I understand that it is my duty to oppose imperialism. It's my duty to stand with the Uhuru movement. It is my duty to try and bring about peace on the Korean Peninsula. It is my duty to demand that weapons stop going to Ukraine. It is my duty to demand that the USA not put up crazy tariffs, but instead start trying to trade with China. It is my duty to oppose imperialism, and it is my duty to connect and bring American people together and teach them what they don't know and build communities where people can rely on each other and trust each other. And it is my duty to try and build that kind of movement. And that is what I am doing. That is my job, and that is the job I'm trying to get done. And if you would like to help me get the job done, join the Center for Political Innovation. And if you want to do something else, be my guest. Be my guest. But I've got a job to do. I'm not going to stop doing it. I'm not going to stop doing it. It needs to be done. It needs to be done. So on that note, we can now do our roll call. Names and locations. Names and locations. I will call you out as I see you. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us? We got Mark Jones in Utica, New York. Names and locations. We got Lawrence Johnson in Chicago. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? We got Brooklyn, Philip in the house. Welcome. We got Carl in the Pacific Northwest. We got Deha in Seattle. Good to know you. Good to see you. We got George Muniz in Sydney. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Right? You got your left knee, you got your right knee, and you got Sydney. All right. Alyssa in Virginia. Welcome. Good to see you. David in San Jose, California. Good to see you. All right. Luca in Singapore. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We got Ryan in Kansas City. Welcome, Ryan. Ian Chester in England. Welcome, Ian Chester. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Names and locations. Alex in Brazil. Welcome, Alex in Brazil. Good to have you with us. Names and locations. We got Morgan in Philadelphia. Welcome, Morgan in Philadelphia. Names and locations. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who's with us? Who's with us? Who's with us? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us? Who is with us? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us? Anybody else? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Who's with us? Scott in Moonlit Beach, California. Welcome, Scott. Good to have you with us. Good to have you with us. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Anybody else? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us? Who is with us? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us? Anybody else? Anybody? Anybody? Names and locations. Anybody else? Anybody? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, I do want to remind you all to make your way to Chicago. It will be the biggest event CPI has ever done. A lot is in the works to make Chicago a success. And I absolutely hope that all of you will make an effort to be at our Chicago event. It's going to be really important, and we need you all there. I do see a number of Rumble rants that have come in, right? So the way it works that if you want to ask me a question, send me either a Rumble rant on the Rumble, or you can Cash App me, Caleb Maupin 22. Either way, I can receive Rumble rants. I can see Rumble rants or Cash App, right? That's the way that you can ask me questions. That is the way with which questions can be asked. And I see there's a number of Rumble rants already. And so I will answer them for the most part, but these are strange times. I mean, I will be absolutely honest with you all. These are very, very, very strange times that we live in. There's no way around that. And if things were, going according to the old rules, things were as they used to be, it would be much easier to operate, but there would be a lot less opportunity. And these times we are in are full of great opportunity. There is great opportunity in these times, but it is not easy. It is not easy to organize in these times. It's not easy to hold an organization together in these times. But we're doing it. We're doing it. As hard as it might be, and as difficult as people can be to work with, we're doing it. We are doing it. And on top of that, we are doing what needs to be done. And I mean, if somebody else was doing it, that would be great, but that is not the case. There is nobody else who's doing what we're doing. There isn't. There's a lot of people acting a fool, and I didn't want to do this. I'll just say this, right? I don't feel a need to respond to every stupid thing that people say about me on the internet, because if I did that, we'd be here all night. There are just so many stupid things that have been said on the internet. So I'm not going to do that. But what I will say is I didn't want this. You know, I was a member of the Workers' World Party for 8 years, and I wanted to remain a member of the Workers' World Party. I really hoped that there was a way I could be in the Workers' World Party and keep doing the work that needed to be done. That was not possible. They went woke and they went broke, and they were so determined to go woke around the time that Trump was starting to run for president in 2015. They completely, it just wasn't going to work. I did not want, and people ask me, well, Caleb, why haven't you started a new party? And this is one question I get, right? Somebody was on there, why don't you start a new party? Because the parties are jokes. That's why. Because in America, if you are organizing a political party, the first question people are going to ask is, oh, are you on the ballot? Are you running for office? The fact that you're not in the Democrat or Republican Party already has people confused about what you are doing. And at the time, 2016, people said to me, oh, are you going to start a new party? And my answer was no, because none of these parties mean anything. These parties are silly, right? And I would be very silly if I started a new party. And I'm not going to start a new party. And I'm not interested in doing what a party might do. If at some point I wanted to run for office, I might start a political party. But we are not living in the time in which forming a new party was a thing to do. I'm telling you, the old Marxist-Leninist formula, the old, we start a party and then we start a newspaper and then we have a leader with a distinct mustache and we go door to door selling our newspaper and we have a relationship with a labor union. That's not real. All right? For a number of reasons, it's not real. If we were to do that, we would be being very, very silly, is what we would be doing. And I have shit to get done. There's shit that needs to be done. If it wasn't for us, if it wasn't for our organization, would there have been a huge banner of Trump and Kim shaking hands outside of the Madison Square Garden in New York City? If Phil hadn't called me to let me know about Trump coming to Madison Square Garden, if we hadn't had our huge banner of Trump and Kim shaking hands, would that banner have been there? Would there have been people calling for peace with North Korea at Trump's biggest rally in Madison Square Garden? Would that have happened without us? Would any of your parties have accomplished that? No. If it wasn't for us, would a book exposing Kamala Harris and how she's tied to the military-industrial complex and what she's about and her father denouncing her and all that, would that book have gone viral in July and August? Would thousands of copies of it have been sold? Would 1,000 copies of it have been given out at the Democratic National Convention? No. Without us, would this book about the Houthis that explains what they believe in and where they came from and how, if we Americans want to struggle against globalism and imperialism, how the Houthis are waging a similar fight in Yemen and how they are an anti-austerity movement, would this book have ever been circulated? Would thousands of copies of this book be distributed? No. Without us, would there have been a press conference at the United Nations to support the Uhuru movement? No. Without us, would the spokesperson of the Secretary General been asked about the Uhuru movement? No. Without us, there's all kinds of great, important anti-imperialist work that would not be getting done. There is nobody else who is doing the work that we are doing. There are a lot of jokers who don't even understand why that is important, who don't understand why that's important, who don't think that that's important, and are doing jokey things, are doing stupid things. And if you think that the stupid things that they are doing is what you should be doing, you don't get it. And if you don't get it, I mean, I just talked for 2 hours about it, trying to get you to get it. And if you don't get it, I mean, that's on you. I mean, we can try and teach it to you, but overall, if you don't get it, if you're looking for something different, if you're looking for hot dogs and we're selling hamburgers, if you're looking for oranges and we're selling apples, go and eat oranges, go and eat hot dogs. I am not here to pander to what is going to make me popular on the internet. I'm here to get the job done. We urgently need a movement in this country to oppose imperialism. We need a movement that will empower working families. That is what we need. And we urgently need that. It is definitely urgent, and it is something that we desperately need in this country. And there's no way around it. There's no shortcuts, and it just has to be done. We have got to build an anti-imperialist movement, and we've got to build the community, and we've got to build the organization that can carry out these operations. We've eventually got to be able to set up shop in neighborhoods, and we've got to have real organizations that get real shit done. There's a lot of foolishness these days. There's a lot of people screwing around, and I ain't got time for that. I really don't have time for it. And, you know, it's sad. It's sad. It's very, very sad to watch people screw around. And it's even sadder when certain people don't understand what we're doing, and don't understand that what we're doing is not screwing around. There are a lot of people screwing around. And social media is rigged. Trust me, social media is rigged to try and get you to see them screwing around and not see us. And that's fine, because we have got to get out of the internet. We're not trying to build an internet fan club. We're trying to get shit done. But social media is very much rigged to try and get you to see people screwing around and get caught up in other people screwing around, and to not get involved in the real work that's actually changing things. Well, that's fine, because we're not trying to recruit people that are going to look for this on the internet. We're trying to actually get shit done. And the fact that the Uhuru movement is of no concern to any of these people, the fact that I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say more. I really don't want to say more. We have shit to do. We have shit to do. And there's a lot of people that are just screwing around. And, you know, the situation right now and the need for an organization that does what we're doing is a bit too urgent to just keep screwing around. I just, you know, there's a lot of people screwing around, and, you know, I've got shit to do. So there you go. So, all right. So why don't I just start answering the Rumble rants? Leo Messi says Shiloh Hendricks scenario and the rise in racist sentiments. Oh, and while I have space, she's supposed to be at Victory Day. Trump should send men if he knows what's good for him or good for us. I don't know about Shiloh Hendricks. I don't know what that is. I'm going to have to Google Shiloh Hendricks. What is Shiloh Hendricks? Shiloh Hendricks. What is that? Woman who called kid N-word. What the hell? What? I don't even want to know what this is. I don't want to know about this. This sounds so overwhelmingly stupid. I don't even want to know what this story is. I feel dumber just hearing this. After being recorded last week, apparently admitting that she had hurled a racist slur at a 5-year-old black child in a park, a white woman in Minnesota. Oh, God. Who cares? Who cares? I'm sorry. I mean, it's awful, right? If a child had to endure a racial slur being said at them by an adult, that's awful. Moving on. It's horrible. No child should be called a racial slur. End of story. I'm not interested. And I'm so tired of this kind of crap. I'm really tired of this kind of crap, right? If this woman, if she said something racist to a child, then she should apologize. She should apologize. I'm sorry that any child had to endure some adult saying a racist thing to them. The woman is just the latest person to receive a groundswell of financial support in the MAGA-friendly crowd. Who cares? Like, what? What is this? Trying to raise $1 million to deal with the great turmoil in her life following the incident. Okay, so somebody filmed her. She got I don't care. This is stupid. This is so goddamn stupid. All right? No child should ever be called a racial slur. An adult who called a child a racial slur should apologize and say, I'm sorry I did that. I was in the heat of the moment. And I did something that was deeply wrong to this child. And I'm looking at this. I'm just hearing about the case right now. I think someone texted me about it earlier and I didn't fully read the link. I think I saw something. I don't care, right? I don't want to belittle, the experience of minority children and discrimination, and I'm not going to do that. But this case, there's just so much of this where, I don't care. I really just don't care. Right? And that's a trap. Right? She didn't apologize. She doubled down. Well, that sucks. All right. That sucks. I'm not impressed, but let me tell you something. I will tell you this. And I know this for a fact, and I will tell you this, right? And I mean, I am purely going off what I'm being shown by people. I'll tell you this. Nobody ever apologizes on social media. Getting canceled does not make anyone ever apologize for anything. Okay? If you want someone to apologize and realize the error of their ways, don't cancel them on social media. Because I can guarantee you the second that her name was going all over the web and people were angry at her all over the country, that's a one shot and guarantee she was never going to apologize. J.K. Rowling, she liked a tweet by somebody. She made a minor statement about the trans thing. And the internet blew up at her. And there was this whole thing. And now all J.K. Rowling talks about practically is the trans thing and how she's on one side of it. Nobody ever apologizes because you canceled them on the internet. Ever, right? You know, Kanye West, he said something about Jews or whatever, and then the internet went wild against him, and now Kanye West talks about the Jews all the time and says he said way worse things since then. Nobody ever apologizes because you canceled them. Nobody. Right? So, yeah, this woman did something bad, I guess. I mean, I don't know the details of the situation, but it sounds like she made an ethnic or racial slur to a child, which she shouldn't have done. That's awful. And now she's been canceled for it. And now she's raising money and she's got a whole social media personality about this. And this is bullshit. This is stupid, right? And this is the kind of bullshit. This is the kind of bullshit, that prevents us from getting anything done, right? And I just don't care, right? And I mean, like, how many times has a parent or a child done something nasty on a playground, done something offensive on a playground? Of course, now that, that she's been made, internet famous, of course she's doubling down. And of course, every racist in the world is running to her. And of course, all kinds of people that have, this is stupid, right? And I mean, look, they're trying at this point, if you can't see it, they're trying to foment a years of lead in America. That's what they're trying to do, right? And I wrote a whole book warning about this. They're trying to foment political violence. And they're trying to create a years of lead in America. That's why they're glorifying this guy who apparently stabbed somebody at a track meet. There was a disagreement about somebody being in the wrong tent at a track meet, and someone pulled out a knife and stabbed them. That's why they're glorifying Luigi Mangione. And this is all stupid. And this is all a trap. And we have to push back against it. Right? Why don't all these people that were getting politically active because one woman in Minnesota said something nasty, were protesting and demanding that we stop bombing Yemen, we would probably stop bombing Yemen. If all the people that are rallying to the defense of this woman who allegedly said something racist were saying we need jobs in schools in this country and demanding that our government build high-speed railway instead of bombing Ukraine or instead of sending weapons to Ukraine, we would have that. Like this kind of crap. What good comes out of this? Let me just ask you. All right. So hypothetically speaking, right, this woman said something offensive, did something she shouldn't have done. I'm assuming. I don't know the whole story, to tell you the truth. I would assume if that many people are giving her money, there must be another side of the story, but I don't know. Who knows, right? But let's say, okay, so say this woman did something really, really nasty, rude, offensive, and what happens? What changes as a result? So we all get really, really mad about it on social media, and we destroy her reputation, and we get her fired from her job, and then what? What changes? Nothing. Or let's say, hypothetically speaking, this woman has been wrongly targeted, the situation is being distorted by social media and all of that. And so we all raise money and we give her money. Then what changes? Nothing. I'm so tired of crap like this that has nothing to do with imperialism. Nothing. This has nothing to do with imperialism. This has nothing to do with, this is just, and it's a trap. And stop getting trapped. Stop getting trapped. Stop getting trapped by this kind of bullshit. This kind of bullshit is a trap. It's a trap. But if you want to be internet famous, right? If your only concern is how many likes and shares you get, oh yeah, jump all over it and praise Luigi Mangione while you're at it. Make videos supporting Luigi Mangione and take a position on this track meet stabbing and just get caught up in this kind of bullshit, right? This is the kind of bullshit that social media loves to pump, and it doesn't help our country in any way. It doesn't help build a real movement in any way. It's just stupid crap, okay? It's stupid crap, right? And again, if this woman did this thing, awful. She shouldn't have done it. She should come to understand. It would be great if we could, as a society, figure out a way that she would understand that's not the right thing to do. Regret doing it. That would be great. That is not what social media and these kind of situations ever results in. Ever. It never results in that kind of thing happening. So I'm just hearing about the case. And I'm telling you, I can see immediately that this is stupid crap. And I don't want to hear anything more about the case. I don't want people to talk. It's crap, right? And it makes me mad that people can't see this. Can't you see you're being manipulated? Can't you see that this is crap? Because it's crap. It's complete crap. Okay? It's complete crap. And I'm the fact that our media is being flooded with cases like this, that should tell you something. Right? We need to build a real movement of working people. We need to start, demanding jobs in schools and healthcare rather than a global financial system that leads us into wars. That's what we need, not this kind of stupid crap. And, people's emotions get all wrapped up in this and all that. Why? Why are your emotions wrapped up in this? Maybe you've had a bad experience. Maybe someone mistreated your child, or you were mistreated as a child like that. I'm sorry that happened to you. And maybe you have been accused falsely or been, I understand. And that's why it's a good trap. It's a good trap because it's very good at roping you in with your own pain and your own trauma. You're angry at somebody who's mistreated you. You're angry at someone who's accused you. You're angry at someone who said something to your child, or you're angry. I understand. And that's why it's a damn good trap. It's a damn good trap. It's a great trap. It is a great trap. Right? But I'm urging you to don't get roped into this stupid goddamn trap. I'm so tired of this. I am so tired of this. I really am tired of it. And this isn't going to help our country in any way. And it's just so many of these traps. Just don't get trapped. Just don't. Focus. We need to build an anti-imperialist movement. We need to build an anti-imperialist movement. And this is dumb. And you know what? I'm going to clip this. And I can guarantee you that one of two things will happen. I will make this video. I will clip this and I will say, don't fall into this crap. And there'll be loads of people calling me insensitive, and I will get, canceled for saying don't fall into this crap. Or number two, for some reason, even though every video about this is getting boosted to try and psych people up, I can guarantee you mine won't. One of two things will happen. Either I will get canceled for saying what I said and not jumping on the bandwagon. One of the two sides will decide I'm a bad person, or somehow this video won't go everywhere. If you can't understand that social media is effectively designed to incite people against each other, to create endless amounts of drama, the issues that actually matter don't go viral. And some stupid incident at a playground in Minnesota is going viral. And if you can't understand that this is a trap, I don't know what to tell you. It's a trap, right? That's the Star Wars movie, right? Admiral Akbar. It's a trap. It's a trap. Well, it's a trap. It's a trap, folks. And I'm not interested in Shiloh, whatever. All right. Okay. Next question. What do you know about church and distributism? Distributism is an anti-capitalist theory that is associated with Roman Catholicism. It believes in having local government, etc. And I don't know what more to say about it. It's in the 1930s. There were, communism was rising in popularity, and so fascists, right? If you looked at, the Nazis, they weren't national socialists. Fascism was Italian fascism was anti-capitalist, and that there were all kinds of weird, like, well, we're not for capitalism, but we're also against the communists, and we have this thing. And during the 1930s, Roman Catholic distributism, right, was popular. Look, I mean, the Catholic Church opposes capitalism for very good religious reasons, right? They understand, that, money shouldn't come first, that money motivates people to do the wrong thing. Jesus Christ in the Bible, he said, one can either serve God or money. You can't serve them both. You cannot serve both God and mammon, right? Catholic opposition to the capitalist system, while not being Marxist, it makes sense. It makes sense. But distributism is like, there was in the 1930s in particular, there were some conservative Catholics that were critical of capitalism, and they were talking about economic theories of distributism, which from what I understand, distributism is like there's like local governments or something. It's like anti-capitalism, but on a local level or something. I don't quite understand it, and I don't really consider it even to be that important historically. I mean, Dorothy Day is an interesting character. She certainly did important work as an anti-imperialist. I look up to Dorothy Day in a lot of ways. She was a Roman Catholic who was originally a communist and then became, I think, a distributist. She started the Catholic worker movement. She was an important figure. But yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff it doesn't, Norman Bethune is why I want to go into the radiologic tech and then eventually become a registered nurse. Oh, well, that's pretty cool. That's neat. That's neat, Leo Messi. I hope you have a good time in the medical field. We have a number of different members who work in the medical field. The medical field or the veterinary field, it's about compassion and caring for people. So, it's certainly admirable that you'd want to do that. I didn't realize that Dr. Norman Bethune was so inspiring for you. That's certainly interesting. But hey, if that's the case, if Dr. Norman Bethune is an inspirational figure, that is inspiring you to go into the medical field, medical profession, that's certainly admirable. And that's great. What more can I say? Yeah, good. And I wish you luck in the field. We certainly need doctors and registered nurses and others. So there you go. I don't see anything wrong with that. What else is new? I think that's all the Rumble rants, and I don't see any super chats. So I think that's all the questions that we've got. So yeah, folks, look, July is coming up. Our national convention, the biggest event that CPI has ever done, will be happening in July. Hope to see you there. It's going to be big. Come, bring your family members, bring your coworkers. You got plenty of time to plan ahead for it. Very close to the O'Hare Airport. It's going to be a great event. And, we want new people there. We want people who've never heard this kind of stuff to be there, and it's going to be special. And we're having a lot of discussions about how to do it. I mean, we know kind of what we're going to be doing, but we're discussing it. It'll be different than other events we've done in the past, and that's good. It needs to be different. It needs to be different. Right. And so, look, we are always 2 to 3 years ahead, and I've realized that, right? We're always 2 to 3 years ahead, and it is what it is. We got shit to do. We've got shit to do. The stakes are getting higher, and it's getting harder and harder to do what we do, but it's getting more and more urgent that somebody do what we do. What we are doing is more needed now than ever before. And there's a community of people that are very dedicated. We've got people that are really, really dedicated. And that's exciting. We've got people that really understand how valuable this community is and really understand why the work we are doing needs to be done. And that is very, very valuable. I have really learned to love our community. and the great work that we do in the last few days. I've really, really learned to love and value and appreciate a lot of the great work that our community is involved in, and a lot of the great people in our group who are very committed and have made sacrifices and have faced confusing, weird situations. I really appreciate all of them. And I appreciate all of you that are just the people that are watching this right now. Good for you. Glad you're here. But on top of that, I really, really appreciate a lot of the people that understand why this community is important, and why no, we're not just going to start a new party, and why no, we're not just going to, we're not just going to be silly and, be silly with other people that are being silly. No, we got stuff to do. We got work to do. And the work that we have done, the payout and the contribution of the work that we have done is astronomical. Again, you have to learn to be an engineer. They sit engineers down and they say, all right, with this kind of material and this amount of time, accomplish this task. And then that's what engineers have to do. They have to sit there and figure out with this amount of material and this amount of time how they can accomplish this task, and they do it. That's kind of what being an anti-imperialist organizer in our time is. With this amount of resources and material and this amount of time, how can we accomplish the most? And we have done a lot, and we continue to do a lot. And what we do, what we've accomplished for what we are trying to do is quite massive. And what other people have done is very self-serving and very self-promotional. And, they want to be seen by others. I think that's in the Bible. There's something about the Pharisees, right? Everything they do is to be seen by others. And, there's a lot of people that really want to be seen by others. They really want to be internet famous. And that's not what we're trying to do. There's a lot of people that, again, it didn't even occur to them. Oh, the Uhuru movement. Should we do anything to support them? Why? How would that make us internet famous, right? There's a lot of people that just don't understand what this is about. We understand what this is about. I read to you Dr. Norman Bethune, and go and read Mao's speech on Dr. Norman Bethune. Go and read that and think about what it said. And think about if you were living that kind of life, and if you're displaying that kind of selflessness, and think about what kind of behavior should be rewarded and what kind of behavior should be celebrated, and think about what various people do, and think about what we're trying to do here, and join the Center for Political Innovation. You ought to become a member, and you ought to get involved, because we have a job to do and we are getting it done. So yeah, see you in Chicago. Yeah, we'll be in touch. So I'll be back probably tomorrow night. If not tomorrow night, I'll be back another time soon. I got plenty going on. And dare to struggle, dare to win. We are winning. We are ahead. And don't get distracted. Not by some racist in Minnesota, not by anything else. Don't get distracted. Dare to struggle, dare to win. New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.